What do you think makes most people give up? Pressure? Hardship? A big shock? Wrong. What defeats them is often not loud or intense, but something that quietly slips into each day: boredom. It is not because the road is too steep, but because the steps become too familiar. It is not because they lack ability, but because the process loses its sense of novelty. Waking up in the morning, doing the same work, seeing the same results, and then they take a different turn thinking they have been on the wrong path. But here's the truth. Boredom is not a signal of failure. It is a sign that you are entering the most important part of the journey, the part most people will miss, and that is why they never reach the destination. Boredom is not the dream killer most people think it is. It does not arrive like a storm, with thunder or warning signs. It is quiet, subtle, like a layer of dust slowly settling on a mirror until you forget you once looked into it and saw the reflection of someone full of determination. And here is what makes it dangerous. You do not realize it is coming, yet it is quietly eating away at your belief every single day. We are wired to be drawn to novelty. Starting a new project, a new habit, a big goal, that feeling is like the opening drumbeat of a show. Everything is exciting, energy overflowing. But over time, that initial high fades. What once felt different now becomes ordinary. The schedule is no longer surprising. Progress no longer feels like victory. And this is exactly where most people start to waver. They look at the repeating days and think, maybe I am on the wrong path. They mistake boredom for a lack of progress. They believe a slow pace is a sign of failure. But they do not understand that this is the real heartbeat of success: slow, steady, and quiet. When you repeat the same actions long enough, they become part of your identity. And once an action is rooted in your identity, you no longer need inspiration to keep going. You keep going because it is simply who you are. Boredom is the test no one warns you about. It does not measure your physical strength. It measures the depth of your commitment. It asks, are you here for a temporary thrill or because you are truly serious? And most people answer by quitting not because they cannot, but because they never imagined they would need to be this patient. The truth is, if you walk away from everything the moment it loses its excitement, you will forever be a beginner. You will never experience what it feels like to step onto the other side of repetition, where your skills are sharp, your results start multiplying, and everyone else has already left the game while you are still moving forward. Remember this: every field follows the same rule. In sports, champions are not the ones who train only when they are motivated, but those who train even when they are tired, bored, and unseen. In business, the sustainable winners are not those who launch a new strategy every week, but those who refine an old system until it delivers outstanding results. In relationships, the ones who last are not those who constantly create dramatic moments, but those who do the small things over and over, building trust and safety. Boredom does not kill success, quitting does. And the irony is, quitting often happens just when you are only a few steps away from seeing the payoff. That is why I believe, instead of fighting boredom, you must learn to recognize and embrace it as an inevitable phase. When you understand that you are still on the right track, even when your emotions are no longer on fire, you are truly free. If the beginning was a wake-up call, then this is the message I want you to carve deep. Boredom does not signal the end. It signals that you have already passed the easiest challenges. The hard part and the most rewarding part is only just beginning. Have you ever given up, not because it was too hard, but simply because it started to feel ordinary? Success does not arrive in explosive moments. It grows in the days when nothing feels special. In the next part, I will show you exactly how to move through this quiet stage and turn it into an advantage that 90% of people will never reach. When it comes to success, most people imagine an accelerating curve, visible progress every day, a new turning point every week, a dazzling result every month. But reality does not work like that. Real success is rarely dramatic. It is not a chain of back-to-back breakthroughs, but a long series of small, almost identical actions repeated over and over until they create a massive change. Look at any master in any field, and you will see the same pattern. They spend most of their time doing things that are not much different from what they did the day before. And it is exactly this that takes them to the top. Picture planting a seed. On the first day, you water it and look down. Nothing has changed. Day 2, day 3, still nothing. A week, a month, the patch of soil remains still and silent. If you are impatient, you might think maybe this seed is dead and abandon it. But those who understand the rule know that just beneath the soil, an entire root system is spreading, silently preparing for the moment it will break through. Success works the same way. The stage where you see no results is often the stage when the foundation is being built. If you walk away too early, you will never see the plant rise. The problem is, the human brain loves novelty. When the rhythm of the work becomes steady and the thrill fades, the brain looks for a reason to change direction. This is the point where most people quit. They believe that if they cannot feel progress, it means there is no progress. But the truth is the opposite. The biggest leaps often appear later, after you have walked a long road of repetition. Look at sports. A weightlifter does not achieve maximum strength by changing workouts every day, but by lifting the same weight with the same technique hundreds or thousands of times until the muscles adapt and are forced to grow. In music, an artist does not play their best piece on the first attempt, but practices the same passage, the same timing, until their fingers move as if by instinct. In business, effective strategy does not come from constant reinvention, but from sticking with one plan, refining it little by little over many years. The rule of repetition is simple, but ruthless. Whatever you do long enough and often enough becomes part of you. Skills become sharp when honed continuously. Habits become unshakable when repeated daily. And success comes when you can push past the stage where feelings no longer lead the way. At that point, what holds you steady is not excitement, but discipline. But I want you to ask yourself this. Of all the times you have started something, how many times have you truly gone through the boring phase and kept going? If your answer is rarely or never, maybe it is time to change. Because at that exact point, you are standing in front of a door most others have already walked away from. Let me be clear. No one feels thrilled doing the same thing day after day. But that very lack of thrill is the strongest filter, weeding out those chasing short-term feelings and leaving only those committed enough to finish the journey. If you can get through it, you will step into the territory that 90% of people quit before they ever reach. And I want to hear from you. Have you ever dropped a habit or a goal simply because it became too familiar? Share your story in the comments, and if what you heard here resonates with you, do not forget to like and subscribe so we can keep going together. Do you think you are stuck in place? Or are you right at the most important part of the journey you are about to miss? Great leaps often come after hundreds of repetitions no one notices. In the next part, I will show you exactly how to turn repetition into the most powerful lever for acceleration, even when everything around you still feels quiet. When we first begin, we think the biggest challenges will be the exhausting days, the sudden problems, or the unexpected obstacles. But the farther I go, the more I realize this. The hardest part of any journey is not in the big shocks, but in the quiet stretch between the start and success. It is the period when there is no more applause, no more novelty, and all you can see ahead is a long road with steady, repetitive steps. This is where most people quit, not because they lack ability, but because they cannot endure the stillness. This stillness feels like a straight road stretching into infinity. You walk each day, and nothing seems to change. You start asking yourself, am I on the right path, or am I just wasting my time? That is when doubt begins to creep in. And when doubt arrives, it often brings hesitation with it. You start thinking about other options, new directions, promises of something faster or easier. But here is what you must remember. Not everyone can survive this stillness. And if you can, the reward will be greater than any thrill you felt in the beginning. I have seen talented, ambitious people lose their pace when they entered this stage. Not because they were weak, but because they were not used to moving forward, when feelings no longer led the way. They were driven by the adrenaline of newness, but when the adrenaline faded, they had never trained themselves to keep going through discipline. On the other hand, the ones who reach the finish line are not always the most skilled. They are the ones who work even when there is nothing exciting to look forward to each morning. This stillness is like the dark part of a stage, when the audience has not yet taken their seats and the lights have not yet come on. It is when you rehearse, adjust the timing, fix the smallest details no one will ever see. There is no applause, no recognition, only you, the work, and a choice: continue or quit. And if you keep going long enough, the curtain will eventually rise and the results will appear as if overnight, though you will know they were built through hundreds, even thousands of hours of unseen effort. The irony is, most people think they quit because the road was too hard, but in truth, they quit because the road was too ordinary. They expect success to be a series of thrilling events, but it is actually a sequence of days that look almost exactly the same. They want speed, but they face a journey that demands patient repetition. And when their expectations do not match reality, they assume something is wrong, when in fact, they are standing exactly where they need to be. This stillness is the real test, because it does not only measure your ability, it measures your consistency. It asks, are you here for the feeling or for the mission? If your answer is the mission, then the stillness will no longer be your enemy. It will become your ally, because you will understand it is clearing the field, removing those who lack patience, making room for the ones who are truly committed. Getting through the stillness is not about waiting for your feelings to return, but about learning to keep going even when they are gone. When you can do this, you are not only closer to success, you have also become the kind of person no circumstance can break. And that is the greatest victory of all. There is a truth I had to learn the hard way. You cannot control everything that happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. It sounds simple, but living it out is something else entirely. Most of us operate on autopilot. Someone irritates you, you snap back. Work hits a dead end, you get frustrated and abandon it. A plan runs into trouble, you instantly change course to chase a new feeling. Over time, those split-second reactions pile up and quietly pull you away from the goals you once set. Reacting on instinct is natural. The brain is wired to escape negative emotions as fast as possible and chase positive ones. But living that way is like driving without touching the steering wheel. You are tossed around by every bend in the road instead of deciding where to go. Successful people are not those who never face setbacks. They are the ones who pause for a beat before reacting. In that small space, they choose an action that aligns with their long-term goal, not their short-term feeling. I used to be a trial lawyer, and in that field, one impulsive statement could lose you the entire case. I learned that sometimes strength is not in what you say, but in staying silent at the right moment and speaking only when the timing is right. That is the power of intentional reaction. It not only keeps you in control, but also creates space for the other side to reveal themselves and for the situation to unfold on its own. In life, this principle is just as powerful. Intentional reaction is not about suppressing emotions. It is about asking, will this reaction bring me closer to my goal or pull me further away? When you train yourself to ask that before every action, you shift from being reactive to being proactive. You are no longer just a player in someone else's game. You become the one moving your own pieces. The truth is, most failures do not come from one huge bad decision, but from hundreds of small, thoughtless reactions. A harsh reply that cracks a relationship. Skipping one workout that opens the door to skipping more. Breaking financial discipline once that leads to a chain of poor choices. On the other hand, every intentional reaction is a brick placed in the right spot, building a foundation you can stand on, no matter how much life shakes. Here is what many do not realize. Intentional reaction is not just a skill, it is a habit built through repetition. The more you practice, the more you expand the space between stimulus and response. The more you expand that space, the more options you have. And with more options, you are no longer a prisoner of fleeting emotions. Remember, discipline is not only doing the work when you do not feel like it, it is also refusing the reactions that pull you off track. An athlete does not lash out after a loss, he uses it to adjust his strategy. A leader does not panic in a crisis, she uses it to strengthen her team's resolve. A person committed to growth does not quit when results are slow, they keep going because they decided in advance they would. True strength is not about how fast you can react, but how much you can slow down to choose the right move. When you react on instinct, you are living for the present. When you react with intention, you are living for the future. And that future, good or bad, will be decided by the choices you make in the moments that seem the smallest. Emotional control is not something you are born with. It is a skill, and like any other skill, you can train it. The problem is that most people only try to control themselves after their emotions have already exploded, and by then it is too late. You cannot put out a fire effectively once it has spread through the whole house. You need a system, something you put in place before your emotions take over. After years of observing and experiencing this myself, I have found myself coming back to a simple 4-step formula that is powerful enough to help you keep your hands on the wheel, even in the most stressful situations. Step 1. Breathe deeply to create space. It may sound trivial, but it is the key. Deep breathing is not just about calming down, it is about interrupting your automatic reflex loop. Negative emotions always want you to act immediately, to reply instantly, to strike back instantly, to quit instantly. One deep breath forces your body to slow down, sends a signal to your brain that you are not under threat, and gives you those precious few seconds to think. Those seconds are the wall that protects you from decisions you will later regret. Step 2. Ask the right question. When emotions run high, do not ask, "Why are they doing this to me?" That question only fuels the fire. Instead, ask, "If I react this way, where will it take me?" The right question not only pulls you back to see the bigger picture, but it also forces you to connect your current action with its long-term consequences. In that moment, you stop being a victim of circumstances and become the designer of your outcome. Step 3. Visualize the consequences. This is the step most people skip because they think simply staying calm is enough. But calmness is not the end goal. Choosing the right reaction is. Visualize clearly 2 scenarios. If you react on instinct, what will happen? If you react with intention, what could change? This contrast makes you see both the cost of acting impulsively and the value of being patient. Step 4. Choose the action that benefits you in the long run. This is where you make your decision, not based on a passing feeling, but on principle. And those principles must be set in advance, not while your emotions are in control. When you are already clear on your values and your goals, choosing the right action becomes a reflex. At that point, you do not have to try to do the right thing. You do it because it is part of who you are. The important thing is not to expect these 4 steps to turn you into someone who never loses their temper. Emotions are part of being human. The goal is not to eliminate them, but to learn how to make them work for you, not against you. Every time you use this formula, you are training your brain to widen the gap between stimulus and response. And that gap is the space where you have the power to choose the path you will take. Remember, you do not have to win every argument, but you must win against yourself in the moments when the wrong reaction could ruin the entire journey. And that victory often begins with nothing more than a single deep breath. I spent many years in the courtroom where every word, every expression, and even silence itself could shift the outcome. In that environment, you learn one principle very quickly. One hasty sentence can cost you the entire case, and one thoughtless reaction can undo months of preparation. There, you do not just need to know what to say, but also when to say it and when to say nothing at all. Because in the courtroom, as in life, silence can sometimes be the strongest lever. I remember a tense trial where the opposing counsel kept provoking me, trying to force me into a reaction. Every eye in the room was on me, waiting to see how I would respond. Instinct told me to strike back immediately to regain control. But experience had taught me that not every instinct should be followed. I took a deep breath, stayed silent, and let that pause do its work. In those few seconds of silence, the other side revealed more than they intended, exposing contradictions that I later only had to gently point out. I did not win because I said more, I won because I spoke at the right time. That lesson followed me out of the courtroom and became a life principle. You do not have to respond to everything immediately. In life, as in litigation, those who know how to keep the pace, who know how to wait for the right moment, always hold the advantage. Slowing your reaction is not weakness, it is strategy. It gives you time to see the whole picture, to step out of the swirl of emotion, and to look at the situation with a clearer mind. What I have realized is that most conflicts in life do not explode because of the original problem, but because of how we react to it. An unfiltered comment, an email sent in anger, a hasty decision under pressure, these are all trials where you put yourself in the defendant's seat. When you learn to hold back your reaction, you do not just protect your position, you preserve the opportunity to turn things around later. When you are patient, you give your opponent or the situation a chance to reveal itself. The truth is, many problems will present their own solution if you give them time. Those who are impatient to win now often expose their weaknesses. Those who stay calm and wait for the right moment often win for the long run. The space between the event and your reaction is a weapon most people overlook. In the courtroom, I have seen talented lawyers lose not because they lack knowledge, but because they let their emotions lead. In life, I see the same thing. Smart people making poor decisions simply because they would not pause for a few seconds to think. And I have seen people who seemed ordinary achieve extraordinary results simply because they were more patient than everyone else. The truth is, you cannot control everything, but you can control the speed of your reaction. When you master that speed, you find yourself making fewer mistakes, issuing fewer apologies, and achieving results others never saw coming. That is not luck, that is discipline, that is strategy. And it is something you can practice starting the very next time someone makes you want to react right away. Many people look at someone who stays calm under pressure and think they were born that way. The truth is, no one is naturally good at self-control. No one is born knowing how to keep an even tone when being attacked, or how to be patient when things slow down. Self-mastery is not a genetic gift. It is a muscle you have to train. And like any other muscle, it only grows stronger when you work it, repeat it, and embrace the discomfort at the beginning. You cannot expect to remain calm in a heated argument if you have never practiced staying calm in smaller situations. You cannot wait until life throws you into a storm to start learning how to steer. Self-control is built daily, through choices that may seem insignificant. Not interrupting someone even when you are sure you are right, not letting a negative message throw off your entire day, not quitting just because you do not feel like it today. Every time you do this, you are adding another rep to the weight of your discipline muscle. People often search for complex methods to stay calm, but the essence is simple. How you react to the small things is how you will react to the big things. Habits are the bridge between today and tomorrow. If today you let your emotions take the wheel, tomorrow you will do the same, only faster, with bigger consequences. On the other hand, if today you train yourself to pause, think, and then act, you are creating a pattern that will save you from costly mistakes later. Self-control is like discipline in athletic training. You do not lift the heaviest weight on your first day. You start with what you can manage, then gradually increase. The same goes for emotions. You learn to control the small reactions first, like not getting irritated when you are kept waiting, or not rushing to fire off a text in anger. Over time, you will find yourself staying composed in situations where you once would have exploded. The key is to understand that self-control does not naturally arrive after a certain period. It is not like age or experience that you simply wait to gain. It only comes when you deliberately train it. And training is never comfortable. There will be days when you want to give in, to let it out, just to feel better in the moment. But it is in those moments of wanting to quit that you are actually training the most. I once met a soldier who had served for many years. He told me that on the battlefield, shooting skills or physical strength were not the most decisive factors. The most important thing was keeping a clear head when everything around you was chaos. And that skill did not come naturally. It came from thousands of hours of drills, repeating the same process until it became instinct. In life, we need to train our self-control, in the same way turning it into instinct through daily habits. The difference between someone who crumbles easily and someone who stands firm in the storm is not about who feels less. It is about who has trained themselves to steer their emotions when it matters. And that ability is not something you have to wait for circumstances to force on you. You can start building it right now. Every time you hold yourself back for a beat, every time you choose silence over an outburst, every time you stick with what needs to be done, even when the excitement is gone, you are carving a new line into the strength of your character. There are situations where words, no matter how skillfully chosen, cannot create as much impact as silence. This may sound counter to our instincts. When we are misunderstood, we want to explain. When we are attacked, we want to defend. When we feel disrespected, we want to prove our worth immediately. But there are times when the more we speak, the more we lose control. The more we explain, the deeper we fall into the trap set by others. In the legal field, I have witnessed this countless times. A young attorney, caught off guard by an opponent's unexpected move, rushes to respond in order to win back points. They speak too much, give away too much, and unintentionally open doors their opponent can later use to counterattack. Meanwhile, seasoned attorneys do the opposite. They remain silent, not because they have nothing to say, but because they know the moment to speak has not yet arrived. And when they finally speak, every word is deliberate, aimed directly at the heart of the matter, making the entire room stop and listen. Timely silence is a strategic skill, not a passive act. It gives you time to read the room, to observe how the other side reveals themselves, to see what is truly unfolding. In everyday communication, silence can reveal more than any question. When you do not rush to respond, people often end up revealing more, sometimes the truth, sometimes their weaknesses, because the empty space of silence makes them feel the need to fill it. But silence is not only a tool for gathering information, it is also a way to protect your energy and your credibility. Every time you engage in a pointless argument, you spend your credibility in exchange for a temporary win. Every time you push to have the last word in a conversation where the other person is not ready to listen, you waste your breath and emotions on a fight with no reward. Silence allows you to step away from unnecessary battles, preserving yourself so you can put your strength into the ones that matter. The key is to distinguish between silence born of fear and silence born of strength. Silence from fear is avoidance, ignoring an issue because you are afraid of the consequences. Silence from strength is a deliberate choice. You know you can speak, but you choose not to because it serves a greater purpose. This is not weakness, but a sign of self-control and mastery over the situation. In life, there are moments when your silence will speak louder than any words. It sends the message that you are not easily pulled into fleeting emotions. It shows you are confident enough not to prove everything immediately. And sometimes it makes the other person stop and wonder, why aren't they responding? That question can carry more weight than any answer you could give. When you learn to use silence as part of your communication strategy, you will realize one thing. Winning is not always about saying more. Often, it is about saying better. And to say better, sometimes you need to remain silent long enough to see the full picture. Timely silence is one of the clearest signs of emotional mastery, and it is often the very thing that sets you apart from the rest. There is a common misunderstanding. If you do not react immediately, if you stay silent or choose to respond slowly, it means you are weak, afraid, or incapable of fighting back. The truth is the complete opposite. Restraint is not the absence of strength, it is the highest expression of strength. Reacting on instinct is the easiest thing in the world. Anyone can do it. Get attacked, you hit back. Get misunderstood, you argue. Get provoked, you counter. These reactions require no training. You simply let your emotions take the wheel. Intentional response is different. It requires you to pause, think, and choose an action that serves your long-term goal instead of your short-term feelings. And that is the hardest thing to do. In the courtroom, I have seen rookie lawyers lose cases not because they lack knowledge, but because they allowed the opposing side to drag them into a heated back and forth. They thought trading blow for blow showed strength, but in reality, they had surrendered control of the game. Experienced lawyers, on the other hand, know that sometimes the most effective move is to let the other side speak, reveal their own weaknesses, and then strike precisely when the moment is right. That patience is not weakness, it is strategy. Life works the same way. Staying calm in an argument does not mean you have nothing to say. It means you are wise enough to know that saying the right thing at the right time matters far more than saying something right now. Stepping back is not giving up. It is positioning yourself to see the full picture and to choose the most secure path forward. The impatient person wants to win today. The self-disciplined person wants to win the whole journey. The problem is, society often glorifies strong, instant reactions. Social media rewards emotional outbursts and viral one-liners said in moments of anger. But those kinds of reactions often erode long-term credibility. The person truly worth trusting is not the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who remains steady when everyone else loses control. That steadiness sends a clear message. You are not at the mercy of circumstances, you control them. Intentional response does not mean being soft all the time. Sometimes it is a direct, firm statement, but delivered at exactly the right moment and in the right way to create maximum impact. That is the difference between acting to release an emotion and acting to achieve a result. The weak chase, the feeling of winning right now. The strong pursue results that last. I once heard a military commander say, "Never give orders when you are angry. Never sign papers when you are afraid." He understood that true strength comes from holding yourself to the same standard of action, regardless of emotional pressure. This holds true in every field business, sports, family, or any relationship. If you are training yourself to respond with intention, do not let others convince you it is weakness. In reality, you are building a kind of strength most people will never have the strength to remain unmoved by any passing wind. You choose the timing, you choose the battlefield, and most importantly, you choose how to win. Because sometimes victory is not about defeating your opponent right now, it is about keeping your position intact so you can go the distance. If you really want to know whether you have control over your emotions and actions, do not wait for a major life event. Test yourself in the smallest, most ordinary moments of your daily life. I call it the 7-day challenge, a simple test that will reveal exactly how much discipline and self-control you actually have. For the next 7 days, no matter what happens, you will pause for exactly 3 seconds before reacting. 3 seconds may seem short, but it is enough to break your autopilot, enough to pull yourself out of the emotional current, and enough to choose an intentional response. Imagine you receive an email that instantly irritates you. Your instinct is to type a quick, sharp reply, but instead, you stop, take a deep breath, and read it again through the eyes of an outsider. That one act alone can completely change how you handle the situation. Or when someone says something unpleasant to your face, instead of firing back, you stay silent for a few seconds, look them in the eye, and let the pause do its work. Often, you will not need to do anything else. They will realize on their own that they crossed the line. This challenge is not about acting cold or shutting down your emotions. Its purpose is to help you realize that every decision you make can look entirely different if you give yourself a little space to think. And when you repeat this long enough, those 3 seconds will start to become a reflex. You will no longer be pulled around by emotions. You will begin to live and act by choice. 7 days may sound short, but it is long enough for you to clearly see the situations that most often trigger you. It could be tense meetings, traffic jams, or private conversations. Every time you make it through a situation that once would have made you explode, You are proving to yourself that you are fully capable of staying in control. And that feeling, knowing you can master yourself, is a kind of strength nothing else can match. Interestingly, after just a few days, you will notice another effect. When you change how you respond, your environment changes too. People who once tried to provoke you will do it less often because they realize you are not easily pulled into their game. Conversations become calmer, decisions become wiser, and you start being seen as steady and reliable. But the 7-day challenge is not just about controlling your reactions to others, it applies to how you deal with yourself. When laziness creeps in, you give yourself 3 seconds to remember why you started. When you feel like quitting, you take 3 seconds to think about the cost of walking away. When you want to cut corners, you take 3 seconds to weigh the price of lowering your standards. Those small pauses become the space where you make not only better decisions, but decisions that align with the person you want to be. 7 days will not make you perfect, but it will open your eyes to one truth. You have far more control over yourself than you think. And once you begin to claim that control, you stop living on reflex. You start living with intention. And that is the foundation upon which every skill, every goal, and every lasting success is built. Life does not measure you by how you act when you are excited, but by how you move when things become dull, slow, and challenging. Anyone can start strong, but only those who persist make it to the finish. Boredom, stillness, repetition, they are not enemies, they are doors. And behind those doors is a stronger, better version of yourself. But to reach it, you must have the courage to step through and the endurance not to turn back. So wherever you are on your journey, give yourself the chance to stay a little longer. Go one more day, one more week, one more month. Every small step you hold today becomes the solid foundation for tomorrow. And if you ever feel like giving up, remember this: the moment you are about to quit might be the moment you are closest to success. Thank you for taking the time to listen and walk with me. I wish you health, a steady heart, peace of mind, and the will to keep going no matter how calm the road ahead may seem. Because sometimes it is in that very calm that something truly great begins to take shape.